Picture this. You wake up, drag yourself out of bed, battle through traffic, work a full day, come home exhausted, check your bank account, and realize that after tax, you're barely scraping by. Meanwhile, somewhere else in Britain, someone's getting handed over $5 grand a year extra in benefits for having more kids while you're trying to figure out if you can even afford one. Sound fair? But before we proceed, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more updates on the UK political insight. Thank you. Nick Ferrari doesn't think so either, and he's absolutely raging at what he's calling Rachel Reeves' reward scheme for those who can't be bothered to work. The two-child benefit cap debate has exploded, emotions are running hot, and what we're witnessing might just be the most backwards incentive structure any government has cooked up in recent memory. Buckle up, because this one's gonna make your blood boil. Let's wind the clock back to 2015 when this whole thing started. George Osborne, then Chancellor, introduced the two-child benefit cap. Now, before you start booing or cheering based purely on your political tribe, listen to his reasoning, because it actually made logical sense. He pointed out it would mean families on benefits face the same financial choice about having children as those supporting themselves solely in work. Revolutionary concept, right? The idea that people on welfare should think about whether they can afford more children the same way people who work for a living have to. It's not cruel, it's not heartless, it's basic financial responsibility. You know, that thing adults are supposed to have? Osborne laid out some pretty stark facts at the time. Despite Britain being home to a mere 1% of the global population, somehow we'd managed to spiral into providing 7% of all welfare spending on the planet. 7%! Let that marinate for a second. 1% of people, 7% of welfare spending worldwide. That's not sustainable by any stretch of the imagination. That's the economic equivalent of spending your entire monthly salary on the first weekend and then wondering why you can't pay rent. But apparently, pointing out basic arithmetic makes you some kind of monster in certain political circles. Fast forward to last week, and that absolute car crash of a budget delivered by Rachel Reeves, a chancellor who's fighting for her job and a government that's fighting for its political life. And what did she decide to do? She lobbed another £3 billion onto the welfare bill solely to scrap the two-child cap. $3 billion, just like that. Money that could have gone toward infrastructure, education, healthcare, tax cuts for working families. But no, it's going to fund unlimited children for families on benefits because apparently that's where our priorities lie now. But here's where it gets properly offensive. To help pay for this glorious giveaway, Rachel Reeves pulled more sleight of hand than Paul Daniels, but ended up with results that looked like the work of Tommy Cooper. For those not familiar with classic British entertainment, that means lots of flourish, but ultimately a complete mess. By freezing income tax thresholds until 2031, an additional 780,000 low earners will now find themselves dragged into paying tax. 920,000 more middle earners will be shunted into the higher tax bracket, and 4,000 unfortunate souls will be pushed into the 45 pence rate. So let's be crystal clear about what's happening here. Working people, people who get up every morning and contribute to society, are being hammered with more tax to fund benefits for people who've decided that work is optional. At the same time, for those living on benefits, and remember, an additional 5,000 people sign up every single day, those who choose to have large families will see the cash rolling in. 560,000 families are going to pick up an extra £5,310 a year, per year. That's not a one-time payment, that's annual. So if you're a family trying to be responsible, working your job, maybe you've decided you can only afford 1 or 2 children because you've actually done the maths on childcare, housing, food, education, all the things responsible parents think about, you now get to watch as thousands living on benefits are actively rewarded for having children they perhaps cannot afford. The system is literally punishing responsibility and rewarding the opposite. Now, before anyone accuses this of being heartless, let's be absolutely clear. There will always be people who need help. Job losses happen, illness happens, bad luck happens. The welfare state was designed to act as a safety net for exactly those situations. Nobody's saying we should abandon people in genuine need, but a safety net and a lifestyle choice are two completely different things. When you create a system where it's financially advantageous to not work and have multiple children compared to working and carefully planning your family, you've built the incentives entirely backwards. You're essentially taxing responsibility and subsidizing irresponsibility. And then we wonder why the welfare bill keeps exploding. The harsh reality that nobody in government wants to admit out loud is that we are now landed with a chancellor who is as financially inept as she is politically weak. Rachel Reeves' grand proposals for growth, which were supposedly fully costed before last year's general election, have failed lamentably. Her efforts to fix the foundations, remember that phrase from the campaign, have crumbled faster than a sandcastle at high tide. Growth forecasts have been downgraded for every year until the next decade. Every year. That's not a blip, that's a trend. The tax burden is set to hit an all-time high of 38.3% of GDP. And inflation, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, will stay higher for longer. That's their phrase, by the way. Higher for longer. Sounds like something you'd say about a headache, except this headache is hitting millions of families trying to make ends meet. Meanwhile, Rachel Reeves and her lackluster leader, Keir attempted to trim the welfare bill by a small margin. Just a tiny trim, but they were immediately faced down by a rebellion in the labor ranks. The left wing of the party effectively held them hostage and demanded the two-child cap be scrapped. And Starmer and Reeves, showing all the backbone of a chocolate eclair, caved immediately. They didn't fight for fiscal responsibility. They didn't make the case for sustainable welfare spending. They just rolled over and handed 3 billion quid out to make the rebellion go away. That's not leadership, that's surrender. That's political cowardice dressed up as compassion. Nick Ferrari's rage about this situation is entirely justified. The waves of criticism that hit Rachel Reeves and Keir last week were deserved. This is an alarm clock budget put together for Benefits Britain. And here's the kicker that takes this from merely bad policy to absolutely absurd. It is a Labour government that is striving to reward so handsomely those who can't be bothered to work. Labour. The party that was supposedly founded to represent working people. The clue is literally in the name. And now they're actively punishing workers while rewarding people for staying on benefits. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. This would be hilarious if it wasn't so tragic for the millions of families who are working hard, playing by the rules, and getting absolutely shafted by their own government. Think about the message this sends. If you're a young couple trying to decide whether to have children, you look at the system and realize that if you work hard, save money, and act responsibly, you'll be punished with higher taxes and no support. But if you quit your job and go on benefits, suddenly you can have as many children as you want, and the state will pick up the tab. What rational economic incentive does anyone have to work under that system? We're literally designing a system that makes not working the smarter financial choice for certain people. That's insane. That's economically illiterate. And that's exactly what Rachel Reeves has delivered. Now, there's an argument that gets trotted out every time this topic comes up. Someone will inevitably say, but what about the children? They didn't choose to be born into these families. And that's true. Children are innocent in all this. But enabling unlimited family sizes on benefits doesn't actually help those children. Growing up in a large family living on welfare in poverty isn't some idyllic situation. What helps children is having parents who can afford to raise them properly, which means encouraging responsible family planning based on actual financial capability. That might sound harsh, but pretending that money grows on trees and the state can afford to fund unlimited family sizes forever isn't compassionate, it's delusional. The other argument you'll hear is that this cap was cruel, that it pushed children into poverty. Except the cap didn't push anyone into poverty. Having more children than you can afford pushes people into poverty. The cap simply said the state won't fund unlimited children beyond the first two. That's not unreasonable. Most working families can't afford 3, 4, 5 kids. Why should people on benefits be in a better position than people who work? It creates a perverse two-tier system where work is punished and welfare is rewarded. And now Rachel Reeves has made that system even worse. What's particularly galling is that all of this was entirely predictable. When Labour was campaigning last year, people warned that their spending plans didn't add up. They insisted everything was fully costed. It wasn't. People warned that scrapping the two-child cap would blow a hole in the budget. Labour denied they'd do it. They did it anyway. People warned that this government would end up squeezing working people to pay for welfare expansion. And here we are. Every single concern has been proven right, and we're only months into this government. If this is what they're doing in the honeymoon period, imagine what happens when they're really desperate. The Conservative opposition, useless as they've been on plenty of issues, at least have ammunition for years now. Every time Labour talks about supporting working families, the response is simple. You're taxing them to pay for other people's children. Every time Labour claims to be fiscally responsible, point to the $3 billion welfare expansion. Every time they talk about growth, remind everyone the forecasts are going down. Rachel Reeves has handed her opponents a gift-wrapped attack line that will follow her for the rest of her career. Nick Ferrari called her inept, and honestly, that might be generous. Inept suggests she's trying but failing. This